everyone, I thought I would hop on and do another video with my young pony Barney. Today we are doing a session on bit pressure. I do like to introduce this to young ponies before we do any double lining or long reining, because sometimes it'll come as a bit of a shock to them to have that pressure in the mouth, and I just want to make sure if we have any freakouts or any panic that it's not when I'm at the end of 2 lunge lines, and it's something that I can help him with on the ground by his shoulder. So what I've done there is I've just warmed up the bit, because today I've swapped his bit from a plastic straight bar full cheek snaffle to a one with a metal mouthpiece, and it has a lozenge. I do this with any metal bit. I don't think there's any need to put in a cold bit into a horse's mouth, but that's just me. It's not something I would like, so I don't do it to my horses. And I'm just adjusting the bridle with it being a new bit to make sure it sits nicely and it's not pulling too much on his mouth, but I don't want it low enough to for him to get his tongue over either. So next we'll just put on his saddle pad and his roller, again just like we did last session and like we've practiced in between now and then. He's pretty good with this, so nothing too eventful, but as you can see he's definitely mouthing on the mouthpiece a bit more, with it being new. It's a new material, it's a new sensation, so this is a good time for him to sort of compartmentalize that and get used to that before we start any work with him. So the first exercise that I try with Barney doesn't go well. I make mistakes, and in hindsight it wasn't the best exercise to try him with, but it's one that I've tried with young ponies in the past and it's worked. The thing with horses is it's never going to go perfect all the time, and I think it's important to include these moments, especially when you're putting stuff on the internet, because we have got young equestrians who are watching videos like this. Although it's not a tutorial, it gives off the wrong message for me to act as if this pony and myself are perfect all the time. So what I do here is clip the training rope onto Barney's bit ring. Normally I would use a lunge rope, and I would put it round his bum, and I would add pressure, and the idea is he turns to that pressure and turns his body around. As you can see here, I try to do it over his back instead, because he is a bit funny with his bum, and I was stood in the completely wrong place, and he freaked out, which is completely valid and completely normal for him to act like that. He's a young pony, he's not had that done before. Well, he's had it done on a head collar, but not with something in his mouth, and the blame there is absolutely mine, but I'm keeping it in anyways, because it's important to show the highs and lows and show the mistakes as well as the victories, and it's not fair for me to act as if every session that I do is perfect, because even after being around horses for 15 years, I'm still learning. So we revisit this, and I decide that the next step is probably best to put side reins on. Now, I'm not a fan of gadgets. I don't claim any quick fixes for horses. My reasoning for putting these on isn't to get him into a carriage or hold himself nicely. It's so there is a little bit of pressure on his bit, and I can send him away with that. And so I'm just attaching those now. I'm trying to keep them loose on the roller. As you'll see though, when he does stretch his neck out, it does tug on the bit, but he seems to learn the pressure and the release and giving himself the release. So I'm not overly concerned. If he was thrashing his head about a lot, then I would again revisit it, but it seemed like a better and a more practical approach to retrying what I did there, because I just don't think we would get anywhere, and I really don't want to make this a negative experience, as I talk about in all my videos before. At the end of the day, Barney's well-being and Barney's experience through this is the most important. So as you can see here, he's got a bit of a reservation on that side. Horses all do have a better side. I found with him particularly, this is definitely his worst side, and it's more noticeable than sort of the things I do on the other side, but it's something that we work with, and it's why I do things on both sides as well. But we're just attaching those there. So as I mentioned there, as you can see, he's moving, it's pulling on his bit a little bit, but he's a bit confused there, but he does there sort of realise and gives himself that release. And I'm just going to pop the lunge line on him, and I'm going to send him out on the lunge. Again, I'm not overly fond of doing too much lunging with young horses. He's only 3 years old, so we don't want to ruin his legs. But I'll send him out, I'll get him used to having that sensation, and we'll really go with the flow with this one. We'll let him tell us what he's comfortable with. If he's really not coping, then we'll end the session there. If he is coping, then we can see if we can attach the lunge to a bit ring and see if he'll sort of respond to pressure that way as well, or if it's sort of again a step too far. Didn't have a lunge whip, so I'm trying to get him off on the lunge, bearing in mind this is the second session, trying to get him off the lunge with just the rope, but he's doing a really good job. And again, he's still mouthing, he's still sort of understanding that he is going to have pressure on his mouth. I'm not worried about that. He seems pretty happy. I do in hindsight wish I had kept them even lower, but it's a bit of a catch-22 because I don't want them too low to the point where if he did panic he would get tangled up in them, because I do panic maybe a bit too much with my horses in that respect. But in the same respect, maybe they're a tad too restrictive here, because he is trying to lower his head, which I also like to see when he's lunging as well. But that's a learning thing, and as I say, I'm not typically a fan of using gadgets. Once I feel he's comfortable with having pressure on the bit, he'll go straight onto the long reins anyways. I don't plan to use these again, really, if I'm quite honest. But hey ho. So again, he's just struggling there. I'm giving him an extra oomph to keep him out on the lunge. Didn't really want him trotting, but that's fine. He comes back quite nicely there with voice commands. So now we're changing reins. He's again a bit funny on this side. As I said earlier in the video, this is definitely his worst side. So I'm just letting him get out on the lunge. He did have a bit of a trot. It's only one circle, so I'm not too worried about that. But he stays out on the lunge pretty well, so I'm happy with that. Again, he seems a lot more settled in the side reins. He's learning to give release to himself by lowering his head, which I guess is, the intention at least. And again, I'm just making sure I'm staying in the drive line there. I don't want him turning in. So Barney actually coped really well with that. So what I'm going to do is I am going to send him out again for a few more circles, but I'm going to attach the bit to his bit ring. That means there is going to be pressure if I'm sort of keeping him back on the circle, and if I do need that extra aid when I'm stopping him. He's sort of slightly less responsive than what he perhaps was in the last session. Then there'll be some pressure on that bit. I've still got the side reins on. I'm not looping the lunge line through or anything, so nothing's going to get tangled. Again, he's mouthing there with that little bit more pressure, but the aim is to not have something tugging at his mouth all the time. I like to ride with, don't know where he's going here, I think he's trying to get the hay from a squirrel, but the aim is I ride with light hands anyways, so I don't want him to be dead at the mouth. I just want him to get used to the fact that there is potentially going to be something there steering him and making him stop. That was a bit of a yawn there, I think, which is quite nice to see. Again, veering, so I'm just giving him a slight little reminder with the lunge. I'm not after perfect circles by any means, but I also don't want him sort of trying to veer off and take me anywhere. So again, we're just going to swap to the other side. We have a bit more difficulty going out on the lunge on this side. I'm just sort of trying to work out what actually was happening there. I think I'm sort of detangling something on that side. But yeah, not our finest of send outs there, but still really impressed with him for being such a young pony. And again, that's really nice, really quiet for me. Sending him back out there. Sometimes they will try and push their luck. But genuinely for him, it seems like a bit of a lack of understanding. And he's unsure as well, which is something to consider as well. This is quite a strange concept to him. And then what I thought I would do with the end of this session is just send him out again, so doing a stop start, break it up into chunks. Again, lots of praise for Barney. He's done a super job. Can't fault him at all again with this session, and it's really interesting to see different ways of adapting to ponies. So what works for some ponies doesn't work for the other, and as soon as we're finished there and he realised he's done a good job, those side reins come straight off. There's no need for those to be on any longer than needs be. Again, I'm just checking his bridle with a mouth in a bit, but I do just put that down to it being a different mouthpiece and a different material. It's a copper mouthpiece or a copper lozenge, so it does encourage salivation. And obviously I'm incredibly biased, but I think he's such a handsome pony. So I do like to spend a bit of time just giving them a scratch, especially at the withers. And then the roller and saddle pad can come off. So one thing that I thought I would finish this session off with is just a few groundwork exercises. They are all things that we did in the first video with Barney, so he's pretty used to them, and I thought it would be a good way of building his confidence back up, especially after he's had a session where he's not been too sure. Actually, he's been really good and very patient and very willing, but it is still something that he's never done before, and he seemed to react a little bit more to this than say sort of lunging him and putting on his bridle, where he's typically been very sort of mellow and happy to go with the flow. So just to sort of recover from that bad incident at the start of the session, I thought we would do a few exercises, just me and him on the ground, and as usual he just aims to please. He's such a lovely boy, and so he gets lots and lots of scratches. I want to end the session by being his friend, by making him realise that I'm not going to make him do unpleasant things, and that I'm really happy with how he's done. And you know, even if it wasn't a perfect session, I think all horses should get praise. More often than not, it's me that's done something wrong, and that hasn't, I've miscommunicated somewhere along the line, and he shouldn't, have that taken out on him. So I'm just going to undo his halter. We do all of our sessions in the field. We don't have an arena, so he's just free to go where he wants, and I'm going to go and get his tack. What I do like doing is just some scratches and kisses first, and it's really nice to see here that even though I let him off, there's a little bit of join up here. He's happy to follow me, and then there he is, happy boy going off to get some hay with his sister. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.